Hey, Bill, thanks for being here. Today we're with Bill Harper from Brand Boss. Not only are they a great marketing and brand company, but they're also the geniuses behind my new Peoplyst brand, which we just rolled out in October of last year. So, Bill, thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it very much. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Excellent. So, can we start off by you telling us a little bit about Brand Boss and about employer brand?
Yeah, so Brand Boss is really a company that helps businesses figure out what story they need to tell in order to scale. So, we are big believers of the no story, no glory concept and what story can do to align sales and marketing and internal teams and the rest of it into really a well-oiled machine. And so that's really what Brand Boss focuses on, because most businesses are under the unfortunate illusion that their consumer is going to buy the best product. And so if they describe and define their service or their product well enough, then people are going to suddenly flock to it. And that's not actually how we make decisions. We make decisions around how we see the value of the company we're considering aligning with our own values. And the best way to do that is to share it through a story.
That's great. It's often amazing to me why companies spend so much money on their company brand and then pay so little attention to their actual employer brand. So why do you think that is? Why do you think they neglect employer brand?
I think the reason is because they don't realize its value. I think it really goes back to the founder's point of view. When you think about why a business gets started or what happens when a business gets started, why don't we say it that way? So somebody decides to start a business for whatever reason, and the minute that they say that into the world, a tremendous amount of social pressure comes their way. What do you mean you're going to start a business? Do you know how many businesses failed? Do you have any idea? You didn't leave a job for this, did you? Like, are you nuts? And there's all this social pressure that happens. And what that does is it turns all of the attention onto whatever the mousetrap is. So it could be a product, it could be a service, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, the whole focus of the leader or the leadership team is hurry up and put a win on the board to prove to everybody that this thing can work. And once that seed's taken root, it's really hard to shake it. All of that focus stays inside all the time. And it's like, how can we make the mousetrap better? And look at how the mousetrap is better. And I jokingly refer one time to a guy that I was meeting with who was talking about this product that he was working with. He's like, man, we have this patent on this thing. It's so great. And like, we're sitting at this coffee shop and he's talking. I just take my glasses off and I start moving the hinge around on this glasses. And I said, do you see the hinge? We're the only ones that have the patent on that hinge. And that's why our glasses are successful. And he stopped talking like this and his mouth just opened and you could see the light bulb go on. And I was like, do you see it now? Like, does it make sense when it's not your brand? And he was like, oh my God. And I said, right. You're like, our hinge. And I said, nobody cares about your hinge. So I think I think we get as business owners, so caught up in our own underwear about it's the mousetrap, and everything else falls secondary.
So I know this is an oversimplification when I say this, but is it safe to say that that brand is basically the promise that we make to our customers?
I would say yes, that's a part of it. But I think moreover, a successful brand is one that has connected between what they promise to give and what the expectation is. And I'll use a James Bond movie because it's really easy. If I'm going to go see a James Bond movie, I know exactly what I'm going to get. And that's the hallmark of a strong brand. I know it's going to be action-packed. I know he's going to get the guy and the girl. I know that it's going to be shaken, not stirred. I know it's going to be gadgets. I know he's going to always be dressed well and, it's going to be quippy little lines. And like that experience is the brand called James Bond. And that's why they've been able to go from Sean Connery to Roger Moore to Daniel Craig and maintain consistency across the whole thing because the expectation matches the brand promise. And that's what people don't get. They're like, well, if we describe it James Bond is the world's best spy. He's the best spy. And so they get into this whole descriptive thing, and the descriptive thing doesn't establish an expectation. It just describes what it is. It's not until there's a story that says, oh my gosh, and then he did this, and he had this watch, and the watch had like a bomb in it, and it was like this amazing thing. Like that combination of the brand continuing to be consistent on its promise and the delivery of the promise against an expected set of outcomes is what allows people on the outside to say, oh, I'm going to go to that because I'm going to get this. Like, I'm going to go to an Eddie Murphy concert, I'm going to laugh. I'm going to go to a Meryl Streep movie, I'm going to cry. It's like we assign these things to these people, and as long as they stay on target, then the expectation matches the brand promise, and those two Legos snap together and the brand is successful.
That's great. So I know employer brand is very similar to that. As a matter of fact, there's been a lot of talk in the news lately about Meta, and Meta has a great brand. Obviously, they're a great technology brand on the forefront, even in AI, everything that they're doing, purchase multiple platforms, lots of eyes on them every day. And yet Mark Zuckerberg just came out with a leaked memo, because he didn't give it to the world, but a memo was leaked where he talked about performance being a new standard at Meta. And so there all of a sudden is a disconnect between the company brand, Meta, and what employees might think they expect from the company brand, and then what they actually get from the employer brand.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how employer brand can meet that same mandate that you just described, where connecting the expectation with the promise.
The challenge that businesses have is that they don't define it in the first place. And I go back to the mousetrap thing. And Zuckerberg is an example of this same thing, right? Like, he created this thing, and there was competition, and there was a need to evolve, and there was a need to continuously evolve. And again, it's such a great example of the focus was on the mousetrap. What's happening? Hurry up and make the new thing. Hurry up and stay ahead of the curve. Hurry up and make the functionality work. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And so the promise to the outside world, or the vision for the company, becomes the number one thing. The how we're going to behave, what values we stand for, how we're going to operate as a team, those things all get pushed to the side because they're not seen as important. The businesses that come along and say, this is what we stand for, here's how we're going to operate, and they have the discipline and they take the time to define those things, are the ones that then hold themselves to that standard. But a lot of times what you see is the very thing you're describing, which is the tail yanks the dog all over the place. Forget about wagging the dog. It yanks it all over the place, because it's like whatever happens to be the shiny object of the founder or the leadership team becomes the new soccer ball on the 6-year-old, soccer field, and everybody runs to the shiny object. And it's like whatever you can do to contribute to the achievement of whatever that new shiny object goal is becomes the standard by which you're measured, rather than saying, this is what the company is all about, and here's what we're trying to do, and here's how we're going to operate as a team in order to get there. That language doesn't exist, and so it's sort of feast or famine, right? You swim or you sink. It's one or the other. Businesses just don't understand the importance of message and how it relates to people internally or externally. The people are almost just tools that are put in place. And then if they don't somehow magically understand what they're supposed to be doing, then they're bad tools and they're sent away. It's I don't know. It's very weird. I imagine you watch this every day.
I do. And we've seen some interesting examples of it play out in the news, and even on Netflix and other social or other channels like that, with the Uber story with Travis Kalanick. If you watch that, I think it's on Netflix. And then Adam Newman for WeWork, he did it on another channel. And they are examples of what you just talked about, where it was, how are we getting where we're going, and employees don't really matter. They're, like you said, just tools. Something that we have in the employer space, especially in the HR space, is called the employee value proposition. And so, or the EVP as we call it. And we basically use that to tell people what they can expect as a trade for their talent and effort. And there's some really interesting ones out there. One of my favorites is Netflix. their EVP is freedom and responsibility. And so what they're saying is, if you come to us for your talent and for your effort, we'll trade to you a lot of freedom. You'll get to make a lot of decisions. You'll get to be involved in everything that we create here at Netflix, and even create your own things. But we also expect accountability. So we expect you to come here and work hard and be accountable for your decisions, even when they're mistakes. And I think it's funny. Netflix has an expense policy that's one sentence long. It's my favorite thing. Their expense policy is always act in the best interest of Netflix. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then they use storytelling inside of their business to enforce what that means. Because people say, well, if I take clients to dinner, is it okay if I buy 6 bottles of Dom Perignon for the table?
And the question is, did you walk away with 10 bottles of Dom Perignon as an income?
Exactly. Well, the other question is maybe that's okay. Was it in the best interest of Netflix? So they use storytelling and folklore as part of their EVP. And if someone gets fired for not having accountability, one of the EVP promises, then they actually tell the whole company why they got fired, so that they can keep the story going. So that everybody
can learn from the story. Sure.
Exactly.
I think, if you break it down even to its maybe even a simpler thing, and I like what you've just described, but I can also poke a hole in it, which is to say it's open to interpretation. Mm-hmm. Right? Imagine how refreshing it would be if you went to a job interview and somebody said, here's the thing. We had somebody here whose job it was to go out and introduce us via channel management to new people on social media so that our social media channel would grow. So what I want you to do each day is I want you to spend 4 hours of your day reaching out to other people and creating new connections. And then I want you to spend the next 4 hours of the day finding content that you found interesting and applicable to our brand that we could review and repurpose to share that same message with the people that are in our universe. That's how you're going to be measured. We would like no fewer than X number of connections to be made each week, and we'd like no fewer than Y number of concepts each week. Thank you very much. You would know exactly what you were supposed to do, but that's not how it works. They say things like, we need a channel manager. What are your responsibilities? To manage the social media presence of the brand online. Okay, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, just do your job, right? And therein lies the problem. You can't measure it, so you never know if you're doing it right or wrong. And if you don't understand what the company's story is or what it is that the brand's trying to achieve, ergo, Volvo wants to tell the world that we are the safest vehicle on the planet, then how in the world are you supposed to be productive or proactive on behalf of the brand? So then what you become is a bunny, and anytime the lights come near you, you're very still. Just doing my job. Nothing to see here. And then the light passes and you kind of move, and then the light comes back and you do it again. And I see that happening all the time. We need to be able to walk down the hallway to somebody and say, in order for you to give the maximum value to this company, you're costing $100,000. I need you to generate $225,000 in revenue to account for you, plus to help grow the business. And the way that I need you to do that is to achieve this, 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 and this. If we all understood our positions that way and to that level of detail, think how easy it would be to be excited or proud of your job. Now I know what the goal is. Now I know what I'm trying to do. Now I know how I'm supposed to do it. Now I know where I'm going. Absent that, it's sink or swim. It's sink or swim for everybody. And that's really hard.
It's really been interesting in the last, I would say, few decades, really, but even more so today with AI, is one of the problems that employers have is that they can't say what good looks like because they don't know. Mm-hmm. So when you have that person who says, we just need a social channel manager, what they're really saying is I have no idea what I'm doing with social, and I need you to come here and tell me that.
Yeah.
And in that case, the goal is not necessarily to make connections for 4 hours a day, but sit down and make a plan for what you're going to do. And then we'll agree on that plan. And then we'll use that to measure your progress.
Well, I tell you, that really stumbles into another thing, and I don't know if this is on or off subject, so feel free to course correct me, but I found that a lot of times people who were able to do something couldn't explain how they did it. So the whole request of could you build a strategy for me was an endless source of frustration as a business owner because, for example, when I was starting to get into social, and I don't know why social became the big subject of this, but
Yes.
As I got into social, I kept asking people, I'm trying to figure out how to approach it. And they kept saying, just talk. And I was like, no, that doesn't tell me anything. And so they were like, well, just talk about what you know. And I was like, you're going to have to give me some more structure than that. And I found that no one could do it. I must have talked to 100 people and they promised, we'll get you verified. And I'm like, before I get verified, I have to know what it is that I'm saying or how I need to approach the social media thing. And eventually what wound up happening was I got so frustrated that I didn't go to anybody. I just reverse engineered what I saw other people doing until I could build my own structure out of it. But I think a lot of leaders at whatever level, whether you're the founder of the company or you're a managerial leader or whatever, I think that they don't know what questions to ask because they haven't been taught. I don't think the people who are being asked know how to give because they haven't been asked of it or taught how to provide that. Like if you asked 90% of the world, could you write a strategy for ABC? Would they be able to do it? It's not to say that they aren't capable. It's saying like, what do you mean strategy? Like when you say that, what would you like me to give you? And if the person requesting is that like, I don't know, I'll know it when I see it, then it's just a complete recipe for disaster because how in the world are you supposed to get something that you can't define or deliver something that can't be defined for you? So the communication on that is just such a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to know where to go.
Yes. And it's a give and take more than anything else when you're doing things like that, especially when you're diving into the unknown. And I think that's how we got stuck on social a little bit. You could easily flip the topic over to AI and have the exact same conversation is how do we use AI to automate our business? And then the next obvious question is, well, which part of our business? What do you want to automate? What do you need to automate?
Why do you want to automate it?
Yeah,
sure.
Why do you want to automate it? And so you're asking all these questions and the person's like, no, I just want to know how. And you can't get to how until you can answer all the other questions. One of the interesting things about attracting great talent is that those companies that have that dialed in, the people who know what good looks like, the people who can express how you will be measured in your role, those are the companies that are able to attract really great talent because not only do they know what good looks like, but because they know what good looks like, and you mentioned it a moment ago, I'm paying you $100,000. I need you to generate $250,000 worth of business to pay for yourself. It puts a lot of pressure on an employee. But the good news about it is that if you're delivering less than $250,000, you know that your job is in danger because from a profitability standpoint, they don't get to pocket that other 150. There's lots of other overhead. So there's some profit amount attached to that. And if you drop below that profit amount, you're no longer valuable to the company. So you have to keep that in place. An employee knowing that kind of thing is makes them, or at least keeps them on track for whether or not they're being successful. Mm-hmm. And so if I can say, this is what success looks like, and I say, this is how I pay you for success, that also gives a path for how can I make more? How can I grow in the company? How can I get a promotion? Well, you can add more value.
Yeah.
And I can teach you how to add more value. You can learn on your own how to add more value. But that's part of the promise that we make to employees, and part of why the EVP is so important, right? Because a lot of times with the employee value prop, we're not just talking about the compensation that you get or the benefits that you get. We're talking about if you trade your talent and your effort, we will give you these other opportunities to grow, to make more money, to succeed in the ways that you want to as an employee. And I think the best employers have a good way of communicating that. So how do you feel about employer brand and the EVP, and how do you tie those things together in a message to candidates who might see a job ad on Indeed or something on LinkedIn about your company looking for work?
I think the notion of an employee value proposition has to be by the individual towards the overall goal of the organization, which if it's done in a typical fashion of we do blank better than blank to the benefit of blank, isn't going to empower anybody or explain anything to anybody. I really appreciate the way groups like Disney and Nike do their purpose statement. We exist to release people's inner athlete is Nike's, and we exist to recapture the magic of childhood is Disney. So if you say, okay, the organization exists to recapture the magic of childhood, we want everybody to feel that wide-eyed, like childlike wonder, and somebody comes to them and says, okay, you are in charge of restaurant experiences inside the park. And so if you understand that your value as an employee is to come up with something that recaptures the magic of childhood at the restaurant level, then I think all of a sudden that starts to get into, okay, I understand what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be doing it. I see that as a way to tie back to here's what my unique role in the entity is. And of course, you can get smaller and smaller, right? You can get into menu design. You can get into seated experience. You can get into guest interaction experience. You could get into whatever. But your definition of what your role is or how you participate in it has to relate, I think, back to that bigger brand promise so that you understand how to be productive and proactive in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer the question that you were asking?
Yeah, it does. It's that's from the employee point of view. If the employer is reaching out and advertising, let's say on Indeed, to an employee, and the employee is trying to decide, should I apply for this job? The employer value proposition is typically what the employer is saying. It's what's attracting people. It's the catchphrase or the motto that a company might use to attract customers. For example, Google's EVP is do cool things that matter. Mm-hmm. And so people who want to do cool things that matter are, all of a sudden Google's in their consideration set because they see that, Google's a great place to work. But Google just did layoffs, right? So it's not necessarily a safe place to work right now. So yeah, you get to do cool things that matter, but is it a safe place? And these are the types of things that employees weigh when they're looking at whether or not to hit the apply button. So how can companies like you mentioned Disney, I mentioned Google or Netflix, how can they tie their company brand to the value they provide to employees so that an employee will want to click apply?
Well, like the example that you gave, if I'm understanding your question correctly, it would be, if we do cool stuff that matters, right now we're looking to tap into this cool thing that matters. And it might be, for example, AI. And, this is changing the world, and we don't want to just produce something. We want to be exploring different ways that it can be changing the world that other people aren't considering right now. So we're looking for we're looking for the intersection of the most creative thinkers and the most strategic thinkers with respect to let's find every problem right now that automation could do something cool with. And your whole job is to come in and identify opportunities worthy of exploration to develop cool things that ultimately would matter. And I think, as I was approaching it, that would be so much more valuable than you get free drinks and we have a ping pong table and, we have Hawaiian shirt Tuesdays. Like, who cares about any of that crap? I want to feel like my time matters. I spend so much of it working. I spend so much of it with these other people. I want to know that the environment that I'm going to be in is going to appreciate what it is that I value, and that I'm going to be surrounded by other people that value it too, and that are going to be similar to me so that I'll share the excitement with them. And that ultimately the company is going to value it because the thing they asked for is the thing that I already know that I'm super excited about. And I think if you can tie those things together in a job description, then number one, you stand out from the people who are like, your job description will include these 7 bullet points. And you're reading down and it's like, okay, yeah, I do that or I don't, or I think I understand that or I don't. There's no, this goes back to the truth in marketing, which is people choose emotionally and they justify logically. So the problem with companies and the way that they position most jobs is that they go right to the logic. We need a blank, 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 instead of would be a good place for someone who has these skills because blank, blank, blank. And I think that's kind of what you're referring to. If
it is,
and I can get that across.
Yeah, and I love that. Having this conversation with you, I knew it would be a good one. And the main reason I knew it would be a good one is because I don't feel like there's any daylight between company brand and employee brand or employer brand. I feel like it's the same story, just told to a different audience. And the companies that are successful in doing that are the ones that attract the best talent, in my view. And then the EVP is what they give to employees that make them stay, right? So this is who we are. That's the brand. And then this is what we're promising you. And of course, if you don't keep your promise, they'll leave. And then, so you have a retention issue. It's funny. I went through, I surfed around on Indeed a little bit just for fun. And I just want to tell you a couple of these. This is how they were selling to them. So the first one was my favorite. We're like family here. That was the promise. So, I love most of my family, but I don't love all of them. And so when you say we're like family here, I can picture those one or two people I'm not super fond of. Another one I thought was great was competitive pay and great benefits.
Right.
Yeah, that's like everybody has that.
Let's rah behind that.
Rah. Yeah. This one's good. Work hard, play hard. All I could picture was WeWork when in the disaster that happened there. And then this one's my favorite because it's the most vague thing I read the whole time I was looking at it, which was join us and make an impact.
Yeah. But these are the kinds of things that people, I mean, it's very much like sitting down across from someone who doesn't know how to interview. What would you say is your biggest skill set? What would you say is your biggest weakness? It's like, oh, hey, come on. If you don't know how to interview, then don't take the job that says interviewer. Like, please don't. Yeah. What is the purpose of the role? Why are we here? What is, how do I spend my time that's of value to me? It's their career. You know what I mean? So we could wax on this for hours. I mean, of course, it's such a huge black hole problem of industry in general. But these things are all fantastic examples of businesses that have no idea why anybody chooses them. And so they say dumb stuff. I've forgotten who it was that came out recently, and I really wish that I could remember now which brand it was that did it. But recently there was a big company, it wasn't Netflix, I forget which one, that basically said, we are not a family, we are a team. Mm-hmm. And the whole point is that you play a position on the team. And I firmly believe in that, right? Your job is your job is the one that you have. Like, no one was asking Scottie Pippen to graduate into Michael Jordan's spot. That was not the career path. The career path was, look, there are these positions on the court, and we need to have each one of them filled in with the person who, number one, is most capable, and number two, is the best team player to make sure that the other people who are capable also have a chance to be great at what they do. If we can match those two things, be great at what you do and be willing to share the ball, we're in a good spot, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. That's the foundation of team. And I think businesses have gotten really confused with this whole social impact thing that has happened over the last 5 years. And it's like, we're a family, and we're making a difference in the world, and our carbon footprint is this, and our acceptance rates are that. And it's like, whoa. You're a business. Mm-hmm. Like, let's get back to what it is that we're doing. We exist to provide value to one particular target audience that radically needs us and that would radically benefit from the thing that we provide. That's it. We're not here to make, the world a better place. There are things that we can do as an organization to reduce any negative impact we have, but we are not here for social change. We're here to sell clothing, or we're here to sell cars or tires or whatever. That's the purpose of business. And I think businesses have gotten so caught up in this just seemingly soup du jour of, we have to be all these different things that they're not, and they've forgotten who they are. And in doing that, not only have they stopped performing well, but their teams no longer are performing well because they're not quite sure what boss they're serving. Like what is the thing we're supposed to be doing? Are we making the social impact? Are we, like, I tease about Jaguar. Jaguar won my vote last year for a company that lost its way by far the most. They just dumped 80 plus years of heritage to change their logo and to do a video of a bunch of people that look like a fashion ad talking about inclusivity and stopping making all of the products that they have so that they can become an EV car. Like, anybody who is in the car world knows that British cars suffer two problems: motors and electrical. So
Yes.
the idea that they ditched one problem to double down on the other problem and then decided to do it as a fashion brand, like, they cause, I can't even begin to imagine the confusion over at Jaguar right now. I wouldn't be in that soup storm for all the money in the world, because those folks have no idea now. There's some vision in somebody's head about where they're going, or some small group. And I promise you, the rest of the folks over there are like, what in the world is going on? What is my job now? What am I doing? Where are we going? I wouldn't be a part of that for all the tea in China.
Yeah, and I know that consumers are equally confused by that whole Jaguar thing, or at least, I am as a consumer. Now, I don't own a Jaguar, but certainly all of that didn't make me want one anymore, and especially the idea of an electric one.
Well, and it's been interesting to watch as the new administrations come in, how many businesses that felt like they needed to jump into inclusivity and DEI, then tried to walk it back. And, the Bud Light fiasco, and Target's had issues with it. And we haven't seen, all that's taught everybody is, whatever changes you're going to make, shut up about it, right? Like, put your head down, don't say anything, and just move wherever you're going to move, but do it quietly. I think people just got really on the bandwagon for a while, and that really lost sight of what the purpose of the company was. And when you think about the chaos and confusion that would cause with an in-person team, and then you consider how many businesses are remote, how much incredible damage was done to any forward progress or momentum that they might have been making, it's significant. It's profound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I know at Peoplyst, we try to make a profit, obviously. And one of the reasons we do that is because I like to share the wealth with the employees that work with me and make it happen every day. So for us, we are focused on helping people reach their full potential and helping businesses solve problems. But ultimately, we're doing it to make money as well, right? We want to have a profitable business that each of the people that work in it can share in. So, and that's part of our employer value proposition too, is we share the wealth. So it's an important thing. This has been great. I appreciate it. I think people that watch this will get a lot out of it, especially people who are struggling to create their own employer brand and then their EVP too, if that's what they want to do. Hopefully we can talk about this some more. I'd love to do this again and dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics.
Yeah, by all means.
Anything you'd like to add before we leave?
No, I think the only thing that I would add would be the development of what you stand for doesn't need to be as complicated as you might think. In fact, I think people make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. If you look at the great brands, the Nikes, the Disneys, the Apples, the Dollar Shave Clubs, they all ladder to one idea. Money is just how they keep score. What they're actually doing is they're fulfilling on some promise. Dollar Shave Club came in against Schick and Gillette, two of the biggest corporate giants in the world, and made a $100 million company by saying, hey, look, there's a portion of the public that just doesn't think it's right to spend $20 on a razor. They think that's ridiculous. And so, each time they've gone through a TSA line and lost a razor, or each time that they've, misplaced it or whatever during a trip, they're like kicking themselves for, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to pay this much. And so, the founders of that brand knew that if they went in and said, you just don't need to pay for shave tech you don't need, there's a cheaper option that's actually good. So we're in that space between the $20 razor or $15 or whatever it is and the disposable razor. There needed to be a spot in there that we could solve. And that's it. That's the one thing we do. And in locking down to that one thing, I mean, some people like to call that niching. Some people like to call it, targeting or whatever. But the point is that it's one story. And that one story can be very big, like releasing people's inner athlete. And that one story can be very small, like, don't buy expensive razors when you don't need expensive razors. But the point is that you need to stay the course and build the momentum around that one idea. And the more you do that, the more successful your company will be. And the more that your internal team knows what that one agenda item is and what that one brand promise is, the better they can perform. So it doesn't need to be some, great American insight. And it doesn't need to be, it doesn't even need to be new or an innovative thing. It just needs to be what you believe in, and then make sure that all the people that are with you believe in it the same way that you do. If you can achieve that, you can literally achieve anything. You can overtake any competitor in any category, because so few of them understand this simplicity and the value that it brings to everybody's clarity.
That's great, Bill. So if people want to hear more from Bill Harper and Brand Boss HQ, where can they find you?
You can visit us at brandbosshq.com, or you can find us on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, all at BrandBossHQ.
Excellent. And you can find me at Peoplyst.com, or also YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn with the handle Peoplyst. Thanks for your time today, Bill. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity.